It's Melody Brook again. Today I'm going to be talking about my friend Yvonne Crumb's favorite saying, which is be kind. You never know what someone else is dealing with. And a part of the reason why I came up with that for my topic today is that I saw someone post something on one of my groups about people being irritable and short and always complaining about things, and why is it people seem to have such an attitude so much of the time, and why is it so many people just seem to be on edge and cranky and are flipping people off in traffic. And hi there, Carrie, and hi there, Frank. Appreciate your joining me today. So people who are short and who tend to be on edge like that, generally speaking, and my response to the group was, the truth is everybody's dealing with something that you don't know. And it may be grief, it may be current stressors, it could be health issues, it could be a loss, it could be just trying to struggle to get by every day. And one of the things that someone else had said that kind of struck me as important to talk about is that I had seen something where they were talking about responding to a child, that when a child, hi Sabrina, when a child is angry with you and behaving badly, to respond with compassion to that child, to try to understand the pain that's underneath it. And my response was, the truth is we have to respond to everyone like that. And it's so very true in my practice when I work with clients who are so angry with their partners, and usually often for justifiable reasons they're angry with their partners, and their partners have such a difficult time expressing empathy for their partner's anger. And a lot of time that's because we take things too personally, right? When somebody is angry with us, when someone is upset, we have a tendency to react with that old brain reactive of, what? I didn't do anything wrong. Why are you yelling at me? I don't deserve that. Hi, I think that's Katie. I'm trying to see those my glasses without my glasses. Oh, Kelvin, welcome. So when we understand that other people have stress levels, right? We have their old brains are reactive, just like ours tend to be from time to time. That when people have ongoing stress, they tend to build that stress up to where when something small happens, they kind of go over the top, because when your stress is built up and your stress is built up and your stress is built up, something small happens, you kind of can go over the top, even though it's something very small. So recognizing that when somebody is like that, when somebody is short with you, when somebody is easily irritated, when somebody is easily snappy or clearly unhappy, I suggest that you consider the possibility. Hi Becky, thanks for joining me again. And recognize that people have stuff on their plates. People have stuff on their plates that's creating that reaction for them, and you don't necessarily have a clue what that is. That you can, the trick is to not personalize it, to not recognize it, to recognize that it's not your fault that they're responding that way, that they've got stuff on their plate that you may not know about. And that, my friends, is also true of the people that you love and are closest to, because we tend to give the people that we love and are closest to less compassion, less empathy, less understanding than we do perfect strangers. We are much more likely to be compassionate towards somebody else who we don't know than the person sitting in front of us who we most dearly love. And there's reasons for that. The reasons are because that person's unhappiness matters more to us, right? And because we feel as if we should have some responsibility for their happiness, which of course we don't. We can only own our own happiness, not anybody else's, even the person that we most love. So when we take it on that we are responsible for another person's happiness, when we take it on that we are to blame for their unhappiness, when we are taking what they're saying personally, and I was just having this discussion with someone today, which is even when that is directly aimed at you, even when it's directly pointed the finger at you, hi Jack, when it's directly pointed at you, even when somebody is saying it's your fault, you're to blame, calling you names, telling you that you're the reason for their unhappiness, it isn't true. Yeah, it's not true. You are not the reason for their unhappiness. Now, you may have triggered something in them that set them off, for sure. That's entirely possible. But that does not mean that you are responsible for their upset, because the truth is nobody is responsible for another person's upset. And that doesn't justify treating somebody else badly. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that 99.9% of the time, when there's hurt feelings, when there's something happening where a person is upset, distressed, angry with you, 99.9% of the time, it's a misunderstanding. They understood something that you said or did, or they misunderstood, misinterpreted based on whatever it was that they were experiencing that went on in their head to make them believe that something was happening that was not actually happening. And I see it every day in my practice, every single day. There are times when people come in and I'm thinking, my goodness, what's wrong with that person? How could they think that? And then the more I listen to them, the more I have compassion for what it is they have to say, the more I'm able to understand that they had a misunderstanding in what that other person was thinking, feeling, and they were taking things personally that were not personal. And that is the challenge. About that, another phone call trying to come in. So this kind of goes back to Don Luis Miguel, the writer of the Four Agreements, and it was such a simple book that I love it for its simplicity, and which is why I'm trying to make my book really simple, was so that people can understand exactly why it is that what Don Miguel Ruiz, that's his name, said was so true. Which is that when another person is upset, it is never about us. It is not about what we have failed to do. It is not about something that we have done that's deliberately been hurtful. It is not our fault. It's information for us about how we may have triggered that. So when you are addressing an upset from someone that you love, the defensiveness actually can create more distance between you. It can set you up to respond badly to another person's hurt, because underneath expressions of anger is always hurt or fear. So, and I know how hard that is, and because our whole body is yelling at us to be defensive, to yell back, to fight back. Our body that old brain is just saying, whoa, wait a second here, I didn't deserve that, and we want to jump into the fray. But when we do that, we actually create more distance, more conflict, more disconnection from that other person. And the more that we can go, wow, okay, tell me more about that, and get empathetic and listen to the hurt that's underneath it, the more opportunity there is for connection and love and understanding. And I don't pretend to say that is easy. I've talked a lot about learning to contain your reactions, which I think is equally as important, but there are times which we are faced with people who are reactive, who are flooded, emotionally flooded, that old brain has taken charge. They're saying things, they're doing things, they're behaving badly, they're saying things that later they're going to regret, they're calling names that later they're going to feel badly about. But when that happens, when we are confronted with someone who's in that kind of pain, we have to recognize it as pain and not just listen to the anger and the attack and personalizing the things that are being said. And oh man, is that hard to do, especially in today's political times, right? I see it, people get so reactive so fast on Facebook when we're discussing political issues, and I do my best to try to calm people down. And understanding that just because somebody doesn't agree with you, just because someone's upset by something that you've said, it doesn't mean you are to blame for that, and you do not have to be defensive about it. You do not have to get reactive about it. It is not required. You don't have to be defensive in order to respond. So, learning the ways to respond that are kind, compassionate, and understanding is the challenge of becoming a whole, solid, compassionate person who has relationships that you can maintain. So the trick, as you continue to listen here, and would love to hear situations which you might be faced with where somebody has offended you in some way, or somebody has attacked you in some way, or vice versa, where you have done that, and if you're willing to talk a little bit about the hurt that was underneath it, that would be great. Because what I do know for sure is that everybody is dealing with some kind of stuff. And I see this on Facebook. I see a lot of people who tend to use Facebook, I think, appropriately, where you're just posting the good things that are happening in your life, and you talk about your grandkids, and you post pictures of your vacations, and you talk about positive things, and it kind of, for some people, can create the idea that you are having this flawless existence, which of course is ridiculous, because none of us, I don't care how successful, how happy we appear on the surface, there's always going to be something underneath. I have a friend in Oklahoma who I spent the weekend once, and I was just like blown away by her kindness and her the lack of tragedy in her life, and how beautiful and sweet and compassionate she was in spite of all of that. And of course she does have tragedy, she does have losses, she does have things that she's dealing with as well. And even though on the surface, a person could get jealous of how beautiful and flawless her life sort of seems to be, the truth is she still deals with the humanity that we all deal with. We all deal with some kind of loss, some kind of hurt, some kind of emotional situation that's hard for us. It may not be the same level, the same degree, the same kind, but everybody's dealing with something. And that I want to thank Yvonne Crum for that, because she's always saying that. I just love that, because everybody is always dealing with something. And you see people like me, you see other people who are putting themselves out there on the internet, talking about things and be willing to expose themselves a little bit. That doesn't mean they're not dealing with stuff. That doesn't mean there's not things that are stressing them underneath the surface, because we all have stuff. I've got my own personal losses. I've got my own personal struggles. We all do. So what I'm asking you to do is to be open to the possibility that nothing anybody says to you is personal, no matter how ugly, no matter how attacking, no matter how divisive they might be trying to be, that if you could respond with empathy for their reactions. It's like there's a lot of people that I get into discussions with who I understand that we have different sort of political views about things, and I do my best to put myself in their shoes a little bit and see things from their perspective, because if we don't do that as human beings, then we lock ourselves into the potential of not ever having anybody that we're close to. We also find ourselves in a situation where we're not offering people who are very worthy of our compassion and our empathy, and blocking them because they have a different idea or a different point of view than we do. And just because I might have one point of view and you might have another point of view, it's like my friend Kelly Cook. I love her. She's a beautiful, precious person. We have totally different views about things. But that doesn't change that she's a beautiful person, and I can be empathetic with her because she has a lot of struggles going on. And I love that we're able to still be support for each other, even though we have these disagreements. So the trick is to stop personalizing stuff. Certainly don't personalize political views. That's absurd. Because I do believe that we all have the highest intention for ourselves and for our country and for each other. And even when it doesn't sound that way, underneath is always that true spirit of love in the essence of who we are. Sometimes we're not very good at expressing ourselves that way. So the challenge, should we choose to accept it, is to learn to settle our own reactions, right? Keep ourselves from feeling quite high doc. Keep ourselves from feeling too flooded with emotion so that we can respond compassionately to people who are upset, to people who have hurt, people who have anger, people who have fear. It's going to sometimes come out in a really bad way, And that does not mean that they don't have a good heart. It does not mean that underneath that there's not hurt and struggle in there, because that's what we all have in all of our lives, and every one of us deal with it in a different way. So the challenge is to take our time and slow things down. The allergies hint out being in Texas. Not as bad as my little granddaughters, but nevertheless, sometimes bug me. So take your time, slow things down. When you do get what appears to be an attack from someone else, when someone is short with you, when somebody shows their anger at you in some way, hi Ken, I suggest that you take a few deep breaths. There's a breathing technique which basically is just close your eyes for a moment and say to yourself, breathe easy. Breathe easy. Breathe easy. Do that a couple of times, a few times, 3, 4, 5 times, however much time you have to do it. Take a couple of moments to just take a few deep breaths in that slow, managed way, and it can actually kind of help you put your new brain back on board. You know, that new brain where your logical thought is, and your ability to think things through, your ability to solve the problems and to see things with some perspective comes when you've got your new brain back on board, and you're not just coming from that reactive old brain, self-protective attack, respond, attack, respond place. Slow things down. And when you hear somebody coming at you in that way, respond with some compassion. Wow, I can see you're really stressed today. Is there anything I can do to help? Wow, it seems like you're having a hard time. Or is there anything I can do to help right now? To offer that kind of compassion for somebody, and understand they may not be able to receive it. They may respond badly to that. In fact, they may even attack you again. You don't know how a person's going to react, because people don't necessarily trust it. They may feel condescended to. They may believe that you are trying to manipulate them in some way. You can't control that. All you can control is how you, and I wouldn't even say control, because that's not even accurate. The only thing you can really do is sort of manage your own response, manage yourself to where you can provide some moment of empathy for this person who's having a hard time, and recognize that even if they're not coming across that way, underneath could be all kinds of trauma. There's this woman I'll never forget, and I see her occasionally in the Louisville area. She's I've gone into stores where I've heard her muttering really negative things, and then she appears to be homeless, and my heart is broken when I see her, and I've been tried to be kind to her, and recognize that I'm probably not going to get through, but when we run into people who are that shut down and that unable to take in kindness, we know it's not about us. You know, when she's saying some terrible, horrible thing, these are things that are happening inside of her that have nothing to do with us. And that's true even when it's someone that you do know and you know well, and you wouldn't expect to have that reaction from. Those people are more likely sometimes to say things that are really hurtful, and they are the ones who most need our compassion, right? Those people who are close to us, who maybe we have done or said something or triggered some reaction in them. Maybe it's something from history, maybe it's something more recent, maybe it's just a fantasy going on in that person that we love's head. Whatever it is, we can respond compassionately and empathetic to that, and not have to defend reactively and aggressively toward it. You know, I also have times when, hi Carlos, I really appreciate you guys stepping up, and if there's anybody new today, please let me know where you're from, how you found me, and any thoughts that you might have about what I'm saying. I know most people struggle with this concept that you cannot take anything personally. I see it with my couples on a pretty regular basis, because when you're really, really close to someone, it feels like everything they say is personal because they know you so well, right? It's still not personal. It is never personal. When our kids say things, terrible, terrible things to us, it's not personal. It's information about what's going on inside of them. And when we can recognize that anger and aggressiveness, underneath that is always some kind of fear or hurt, it really shifts everything in how we perceive what's going on between us. And it gives us the opportunity to apply the antidote to that self-protective behavior by providing that person with empathy. And that doesn't mean being a rescuer to the point of, we're letting them walk all over us, because we can still provide information about how their communication impacted us, right? That's part of our responsibility too, is to take ownership for how we feel in response to the things they're saying. So if someone is saying something that's hurtful, even when we're trying really hard not to take it personal, and we can respond empathetically, and I can see that you're hurt. I see something happen where you're really hurting. Can you tell me more about that? Tell me more about what triggered that thought, what made you feel that way. And I can see why, if you felt that way, that you would feel, that if you thought that and if you experienced that you would have that kind of hurt from that, and that you would have that kind of pain, because I've been in situations where I felt some of that too. And then you can say, when you raise your voice at me like that, when you call me names, I get really confused and hurt, because I thought that we had a different relationship than that, and I feel like I'm not sure where we stand right now. But when you say things like that, I get confused about where we stand and where our friendship is or where our relationship is. So you can do that, but only when you're doing it from a calm place. You can't when you're reactive and hi Stephanie, when you are struggling with your own flooded feelings of upset and anger and hurt, it's very difficult to respond empathetically and calmly and compassionately to somebody else, which is why we have to learn to sort of manage our own stress and manage our own reactiveness in such a way that we can then respond differently to this person who may be coming at us with something that feels hurtful. So how do we do that? Well, first off, we have to learn to manage our stress day in, day out, right? So the more that we do our yoga, do our mindfulness meditation, go have playtime, do those things that are comforting to ourselves, do those things that help us relieve stress, whatever that is, whether it's getting your nails done or going for a run or doing yoga, playing with your kids, playing with your grandkids, whatever it is that allows you to let go of stress. You need to increase those activities for yourself, so that when something happens, when somebody comes at you, you're much less likely to respond in a self-protective, defensive way, and instead then can be more compassionate. Because if your stress level's down, that allows you to not have to be as reactive to another person. That phone call coming in again. So when you do that, when you take the time to settle, get yourself calm, then it's much easier to respond with compassion to someone else. So the challenge is, number one, don't take things personally. Nothing anybody says or does is about you. It's stuff that's going on with them, and it's information about them that, should you choose to be open to it, you could ask for more information, get more details, have some insight into what's really hurting this person and what is it that's underneath that what appears to be an attack. Now, obviously, if it's a stranger, you're not going to go deep into that, but you can, within yourself, just accept it as being information about a person being in pain and not as information about you. You don't have to take that personally. So then the second thing, and if it is somebody that you want to deepen your relationship with, just kind of hear out what that person is saying. Tell me more about that. So I can hear that you're feeling hurt. I can hear that you're angry. I can see that something I did spark that reaction in you, and I really want to know more about that. And providing them with some empathy and validation for their feelings. You don't have to agree with them, but providing them some understanding that you have. Okay, well, I can see it makes sense that you would feel that way, and you know what, I had felt that way before, and I didn't like it either. So providing that person that you're wanting to develop a closer relationship to, with that kind of emotional support, you have an opportunity to change the nature of your relationship. And that is always true if you have a highly volatile relationship with someone where there's a lot of conflict. And I swear, I promise you, that the antidote to that self-protective reaction is to not go into the self-protective reaction yourself. Instead, provide empathy for how that other person is feeling. Even if you're out in public and somebody is behaving in a sort of self-protective way, it's like, yeah, I know it can be really stressful standing online, and when you're in a hurry. I'm sorry. I know it's hard. I don't like it either. I hate standing in line too. Whatever it is, provide them a little piece of empathy, and it can take the wind out of that self-protective stance. And I recognize that feels opposite of the way that our natural reactions are, right? We have this sort of natural reaction to just automatically be offended and automatically offer them some kind of offer them some kind of reactive thing to when they are being offensive toward us. And sometimes, they're not nice at all. They're saying really ugly things, and it makes it very difficult to not react back. And I have to say, I've not always done it. Even though I wrote the book on it, I still sometimes will just automatically react, but then I have to step myself back. So I'll go, wait a second, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Tell me what's going on. I can see you're hurting. So that is an option too. When you get to the point that you can start becoming aware, change has lots of different degrees. The first thing, of course, is awareness. And I've provided you with some awareness today about other people, stuff not having anything to do with you. And when people are angry and upset, that it's not about you. In spite of the fact that they may be pointing their fingers at you and saying it's about you, doesn't mean it is. So that's the first step, is to have that awareness. The second step is to learn how to manage your own reactions a little bit, learning how to calm yourself down, right? So that when those things do happen, you can choose to respond differently, but you may not at first respond differently. You may just sort of have something going on in your head where you're like, wow, this person's upset, and you react anyway, and you understand, wow, they're really hurting inside, but you react anyway. And then the fourth part is for you then to be able to go, wait a second, I didn't mean that. Hang on, let me try this again. I'm sorry, I can see you're hurting. I can see you're upset. Tell me more about that, and provide them with some understanding and empathy for that. But it may take a few steps along the way. It may be a while before you get to the place where you can just sort of automatically know that whatever is happening, whatever this person is throwing at you, whether it's a stranger or your lover or your husband or your wife or your daughter or whoever it is, your mother-in-law, whoever it is that's throwing that self-protective stuff at you, if you can settle yourself enough to really, really get it, that it's not about you, then you can respond with compassion and empathy to this other person and be kind, right? Being kind, because you don't know, oddly enough, with so many of my couples, I see that they really don't understand what's going on with their partner. And when we get into therapy and when we get into working through and getting to deeper and deeper levels of understanding, they do get to a place where they can go, oh, wow, I had no idea you felt that way. I had no idea you were dealing with that. These are people who may have lived together for 20 and 30 years and they still haven't known each other at the level that I'm talking about, because they spend so much time defending and getting caught up in that cycle of egocentrism that they keep each other at a distance, because that's what the cycle of egocentrism does. It keeps you separate. It pushes you apart. even when you're, maybe even especially if you're doing the rescuer role. But regardless, it causes separation, not connection. So learning how to react differently, to respond differently when somebody is throwing that self-protective stuff at you is very key to deepening your relationships. And it also helps you manage your stress better, because when you can really get it, that nothing is personal, that nothing anyone says or does is really about you, it doesn't mean you've done something wrong. I have a sticker I keep, it's a sticky note that I have on my computer and I've had for several years. It says, just because someone is upset with me, it doesn't mean I've done something wrong. Now, it's true that what I did, I may later wish I had done differently or handled it differently. That's true. But that doesn't mean I was bad and wrong for doing it. It means that, oh, wow, I can take that information in and recognize that there's something differently I could do in the future that would maybe have a different result than what I got, because that is how we can learn. We get reactive, whether it's defensive or going into shame. Either way, it prevents us from being able to learn from the information that we're being given. So the challenge for you is to take away from today, not to take anything personally. Even when somebody's pointing their finger at you and yelling at you and calling you names, don't take it personally. Respond with empathy. But you might first have to learn to settle yourself down a little bit. Take those breathe easy breaths. Breathe easy breaths, so that you can be settled yourself and have your new brain respond with some compassion and empathy for this other person, because everybody is dealing with something, right, Yvonne Karam? Everybody is dealing with something. So I'd love to hear more thoughts that you might have about that. You can check out more about me at melodybrook.com. You can also, hi there, is that a chance? And you can see me on Patreon and on YouTube and Melody Brook LNFT LPC page. There's many more of my my posts on there. Might be easier to find my other Facebook lives there. So if you have thoughts or questions or anything, you can message me personally, or you can leave a comment here and I will see if I can respond. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will be here next week. I have no idea what I'll be talking about. Sometimes I don't know till I click the Facebook Live button, but I will talk to you then. Oh, also I will be on with the 4 at 4 on Thursday. Talk to you then. Bye.